Hello, history buffs, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a lesser-known, yet absolutely crucial chapter of World War II. Forget what you think you know about the grand strategies for a moment, because we're telling the story of the unsung heroes of W Force. So what exactly was W Force? In the spring of 1941, the world held its breath as German forces, fresh from their blitzkrieg victories, turned their attention towards the Balkans and the critical Suez Canal. The British, desperate to halt this advance, scrambled to defend Greece. This is where W Force comes in. Commanded by the formidable Lieutenant General Sir Henry Maitland Wilson, W Force was a diverse, multinational contingent of British, Australian, and New Zealand troops. Their mission? A daunting, almost impossible task: to stand firm against the seemingly unstoppable German war machine in the rugged mountains of Greece. Imagine the scene. These soldiers, many of whom were veterans of the North African Desert Campaign, were suddenly thrust into a completely different environment. They traded the vast, sandy plains for treacherous mountain passes and unpredictable spring weather. They were part of a larger Allied expeditionary force, but W Force was at the very heart of the defense. Their primary objective was to hold the Aliakman Line, a natural defensive position in northern Greece. They knew they were outnumbered and outgunned, but their resolve was ironclad. The German invasion of Greece, codenamed Operation Marita, began on April 6, 1941. It was a brutal, lightning-fast assault. W Force found itself immediately in the thick of the action. One of the first and most significant engagements was the Battle of Vivi. Here, a composite unit, including the Australian 19th Infantry Brigade and the British 1st Armoured Brigade, fought a desperate holding action. For 2 grueling days, they battled against superior German panzer divisions. Their courage bought precious time for the main body of Allied forces to withdraw and regroup further south, but it came at a heavy cost. The terrain itself was both an ally and an enemy. The steep valleys and narrow passes were perfect for ambushes and defensive stands, but they also made communication and supply lines a logistical nightmare. Soldiers had to contend with freezing rain, snow, and mud, all while under constant threat from the German Luftwaffe, which enjoyed near-total air superiority. Every ridge and every river crossing became a battlefield. As the German advance proved overwhelming, the Allied command made the difficult decision to execute a strategic withdrawal. W Force's role shifted from holding a line to conducting a fighting retreat. This is one of the most difficult military maneuvers to pull off successfully. It requires incredible discipline, coordination, and sheer grit. The goal was to delay the enemy, save as many men and as much equipment as possible, and make it to the evacuation ports on the southern coast. This retreat led to a series of heroic rearguard actions. The Battle of Thermopylae is a name that echoes through history, and in 1941, it was the site of another legendary last stand. Here, Australian and New Zealand troops, fighting under the banner of W Force, held the pass against overwhelming odds. Mirroring the stand of the Spartans centuries before, they knew they were buying time not for victory, but for escape. Their sacrifice allowed thousands of their comrades to be evacuated from the beaches of southern Greece. Think about the individual soldier in that moment, exhausted, short on ammunition, watching the horizon for the next wave of tanks or the dive bombers they couldn't fight. Yet they held their ground. Stories from the campaign speak of incredible bravery, of small units holding off entire German columns with nothing but rifles and a few anti-tank guns, of engineers blowing bridges under heavy fire to slow the German advance just a little bit longer. The evacuation, codenamed Operation Demon, was a chaotic and perilous affair. Under constant air attack, Royal Navy ships and a flotilla of other vessels braved the dangers to rescue the stranded soldiers from beaches and small ports. Over 50,000 Allied troops were successfully evacuated, a remarkable feat under the circumstances. However, the losses were still immense. Thousands were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner, and nearly all of their heavy equipment was left behind. So was the Greek campaign a failure? From a purely strategic standpoint, it might seem so. Greece fell, and the British were forced into a hasty retreat. But this perspective misses the bigger picture. The fierce resistance put up by W Force and their Greek allies had a significant, and often overlooked consequence. The campaign delayed the German timetable. Critically, the effort and resources Germany poured into conquering Greece and then Crete delayed the start of their invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa. Historians still debate the exact impact, but many argue that this delay, of several crucial weeks, meant that the German army reached the gates of Moscow just as the brutal Russian winter set in. That winter stopped the German advance in its tracks, and arguably changed the entire course of the war on the Eastern Front. The story of W Force is therefore not a story of defeat, but one of resilience, sacrifice, and profound impact. It's a testament to the soldiers from across the Commonwealth who, against impossible odds, stood together in the mountains of Greece. They fought for every inch of ground. They bought precious time with their lives, and their actions had repercussions that rippled across the entire war. They were the unsung heroes who helped turn the tide, not with a grand victory, but with a courageous and costly stand. Their legacy deserves to be remembered. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the history of W Force. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories from the forgotten corners of history. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if there are other unsung units you'd like to see covered. Until next time, stay curious.